everyone, welcome to Untie the Spirit Module 2. I'm Robin Kitchen again, Manager for Learning and Growth at Sherbrooke and Central Haven, and I'm excited to introduce Module 2 today. So Module 1 in Untie the Spirit, we talked about all the amazing leaders and mentors that we've learned from to create this course. We also talked about how we need to shift our thinking about dementia, and we learned a great new definition from Dr. Al Power, where he teaches us that dementia is a shift in the way the person experiences their world around them. You know, and this definition takes all the negative labels and stigmas out and instead creates a better visual for us to have a better understanding of what the elder who's living with dementia is experiencing. And so Module 2, which is what we're going to focus on today, is where we start to shift and think about focusing on well-being. Well-being is that contented state of being that we all want to feel in our lives. It's what we all strive for in life, is to be able to experience well-being. And for us at Sherbrooke and Central Haven, the reason that we are implementing the Eden alternative in our communities is because we want the elders who live here to experience well-being in their lives. And the Eden alternative philosophy helps to enhance well-being for people. Dr. Thomas describes well-being as the path to a life worth living. The most valuable of all human possessions is to be able to experience well-being in life. The Eden alternative helps us to enhance well-being for elders because it focuses on the whole person, including the needs of the human spirit. But the Eden philosophy has given us even more than that to help us enhance well-being for elders. They've given us something called the 7 domains of well-being, which is a framework that helps us better understand well-being and what people need in order to feel it. The 7 Eden domains of well-being were originally created to show the universal human needs that are often unmet and unmeasured in traditional care communities, but yet they are universal emotional needs that we all have as human beings if we're going to experience well-being. And the sad thing about these domains of well-being is that they are universal human needs that cross all ages, all cultures, all religions, all ethnicities, and all abilities. And yet, traditionally, we haven't focused on recognizing them or learning how to restore them for people. But this is where the Eden alternative is a game changer with this. And so what are these 7 domains of well-being? The domain of identity. It's about being well-known, having personhood, individuality, wholeness, and having a story that is known, respected, and valued within your home. Identity comes about through the development of meaningful relationships and the mutual sharing of your story and who you are. As staff, we know that we work in the elder's home, and we need to really get to know each person who lives here so that we can honor and value each person within their home. And as human beings, we all need to be well known in our own homes. It's an essential part of well-being. The domain of connectedness is about belonging, being engaged and involved, having close, meaningful relationships. Connectedness comes about through loving companionship, which is the antidote to loneliness. This domain is about our basic human need to be in relationship with others. And we need to feel that we belong in our own homes and communities. And elders need to feel that in their home and their community here. The domain of security is about having freedom from fear, anxiety, and doubt. It's about feeling safe, having privacy, dignity, and respect. Security comes about through the building of trust, loving support, being well known, and being listened to. The domain of security is about us all needing to feel safe in our own homes. That's a need we all have to experience well-being. We need to be able to trust those that are closest to us and to be reassured that we're going to be treated with respect and dignity in our home. The domain of autonomy. This domain is about choice and self-determination, freedom from the arbitrary exercise of authority. Autonomy comes about through a person-directed approach where elders direct their own lives. And as staff, we realize that we work in the elder's home as opposed to the elder living in our workplace. The domain of autonomy is about the need to be in control of your own life as much as possible. There's been a lot of research around that sense of dread that people have about moving into long-term care. And the number one reason that people fear moving into long-term care is a loss of control. And so we know that for many elders moving to Sherbrooke and Central Haven, they will have that fear upon moving in here. And we need to ensure that we're putting as many decisions and control into their hands as we possibly can. This is a really great message that came from an elder living at Sherbrooke. I like the fact that my home is an Eden community and that we are encouraged to live full, abundant lives. The liberty we have to live and expand our horizons both in and outside of Sherbrooke, even to live at risk and to be treated with respect and dignity, and the freedom to make our own decisions without harm, that is something special and unique. So knowing the importance of choice and autonomy and control, here's a couple of questions for you to think about to kind of give it some perspective. I want you to think about how many choices you made before you left your house to come to work. And then think of an elder in your neighborhood. How many choices do they make in the mornings? And I'm thinking if you really count every choice and add them all up, that your list of choices that you made is going to be way longer than the list of choices that elders made. And this is a really good perspective check for all of us who are serving elders, in that we all have, as human beings, this need to be in control of our own lives and to make choices for ourselves. But when you look at the staggering difference between the number of choices that are made, it really reminds us how important it is for us to put as many choices into the hands of elders as possible, because we want to fill their cup up with this. We want them to have more choice and more control. The domain of meaning. This domain is about having a purpose, activity that speaks to one's personal values, rituals, recognition, self-esteem. Meaning comes about by being involved in or part of something that makes you want to get out of bed every day. We all need to have a reason to want to get out of bed every day. Life has to have meaning. We all need a purpose. This is something we don't always consider in terms of serving elders, but it can really change feelings for people. So we need to find out from elders what makes them feel that they have purpose. And that's going to be different for each person. And that's why having a community that is abundant and vibrant with lots of opportunities and possibilities to tap into all of those things that add meaning and purpose to people's lives is so important. It's part of us creating a whole world for elders to live in. But we need to really get to know from each person, what is their reason to get out of bed? What is their purpose? What do they want to be involved in? Really important questions for us to ask as we get to know elders. So what gives us purpose earlier in life may or may not give us purpose later in life. And this speaks to getting to know the elders really well for who they are right now in their lives. There's a really great story that actually came out of a different care home. They had moved a gentleman in, Mr. N, and he was living with cognitive change, and he had been living there for a couple of months, and staff were concerned about his well-being because he was spending most of his time in his room. He wasn't really interacting with others and was really closed off. And so they were really worried about his well-being. And so they talked to his daughter, and they were gathering information, and they asked his daughter, what if there was something that he used to really enjoy doing. And his daughter said that when he lived at home, in his own home, he had a front porch outside. And in the mornings, he would start his day by having a cup of coffee and taking it out on the front porch. And then he would take a broom and he would sweep the front porch. And he did this every single morning. It was how he started his day. And so the staff thought, well, this is great. We're going to get him a broom and we're going to ask for his help to sweep the front entryway of the home. And so they did that, and at first Mr. N was quite willing to help them out. And then after a few days, he said to the staff, "I don't know what kind of operation you're running here, but you really need to hire somebody. I don't want to do this every day." And that is just such a great little story to remind us that, again, what gives us purpose earlier in life may or may not give us purpose later in life. And so again, it's about really getting to know elders in terms of who they are now and offering lots of opportunities to tap in to find out what's meaningful for them. And again, for something to be purposeful, it has to have meaning for the person. And again, this is very individual. We had a planting party in one of the neighborhoods at Sherbrooke one spring, planting seeds, and one of the elders living there had been a farmer in his life and had massive gardens and was very in touch with nature and loved anything to do with gardening. And he loved every minute of this. Another elder who had joined in had never grown a garden, had no interest in planting, and he really hated the entire experience. And so that activity had purpose and meaning for one person, but definitely not for the other. And so this is something that's just so very individual. The domain of growth. This domain is about development, enrichment, expanding, self-actualization. Growth comes about through new life experiences and knowledge, and through teaching others. The need to continue to learn and grow as human beings and to help others to learn and grow around us, it's never ending. And so we need to continue to recognize that elders are growing and evolving every single day, and that the elders are here to teach us. And then the last domain is joy. And joy is about happiness, enjoyment, pleasure, and contentment. Joy is what we all want out of life. And joy happens when we figure out and focus on what it is in life that brings us joy. Joy is such a powerful emotion, and we need to make sure that we're finding out what brings the elders joy and building that into their lives wherever we can. We need to learn what an elder's simple pleasures are. And simple pleasures are those little day-to-day things that just make you happy. Maybe it's that first cup of coffee in the morning, or I know for an elder who lived here at one time, it was watching falling snow. She loved it. It was one of her simple pleasures. And so we need to learn those things, and so that we can build them into the elders' lives in whatever way we can, because we all want to experience joy in our life. And this is a great message from an elder as well, in the elder's words about joy. I am very blessed to live where I live. I've enjoyed my time. There have been some really good times, and I'm grateful to all who have made my life worth living. And so those are the 7 domains of well-being. And again, they represent the 7 universal human needs that we all have and that we all need to have met in our lives in order to experience well-being. And so as care partners in the lives of elders, we need to be looking for opportunities every day in our work to fill these cups for the elders. We often imagine the Eden domains of well-being as piggy banks. And so if you think about each of the domains as a piggy bank, when an elder moves into Sherbrooke or Central Haven, imagine that the bottom of that piggy bank is opened up and it starts to empty. And so we need to ensure that we keep adding to that piggy bank at the top so it doesn't empty fully. For example, the domain of autonomy, which is about control and choice. We need to keep adding to that piggy bank. We need to offer choices. We need to respect the choices that elders make. We need to put as many decisions as possible into the hands of the elders, no matter how big or small. And each time we do this, we're adding to that piggy bank. We also need to ensure, though, that we aren't doing things that make the piggy bank empty faster. You know, when you shake a piggy bank, everything falls out faster. We have to make sure we're not shaking the piggy banks for people. For example, the domain of security, which is about feeling safe in your home. We shake the piggy bank when we do things like whisper in the hallway, talk about being short-staffed. That affects people's sense of safety in their home. When we're in conflict with each other as staff, that puts stress on elders in their home and affects their security. When we speak to each other in a language that the elder doesn't understand, that also affects an elder's sense of safety and security in their home. And so again, all of these things actually are like robbing somebody's sense of well-being. And so we need to make sure that we're always filling the elders' piggy banks and that we're not doing anything to empty them faster. So we're going to shift now and start talking about approach. And a real key foundation to enhancing well-being for elders and really living our mission, vision, and values at Sherbrooke and Central Haven is ensuring a commitment to person-directed living. Dr. Power, he challenges us to call it person-directed living. You may have heard it being called person-directed care, but Dr. Power reminds us that it's more than elders directing their care. It's about elders directing their lives. And so if we use the word care, it kind of keeps us stuck in that hospital or medical model focus, but it really is about supporting elders as they live their lives. Cheryl George, who was our longtime education leader at Sherbrooke, she's a global partner with Eden Alternative. She has a great quote here. She says, "The essence of Eden is that each person is in control of their own life as much as possible." You know, again, we all want control over our own lives. That doesn't change when you move into long-term care. And we talked about this with the domain of autonomy, that the number one fear people have about moving into long-term care is loss of control. Part of our commitment to being person-directed in our approach is that we think about ourselves in the lives of elders as care partners with them. And instead of being caregivers, we're actually partners with them. And in terms of who is a care partner, the elder themselves, they're a care partner, staff involved in their care partners, and families or important friends in the elder's life are also care partners. And for all of us who are care partners with an elder in their life, we have one really important role. Our role in the lives of elders as their care partners is to support, encourage, and enable each elder as they direct their own life. That is our role in their lives. So we're going to shift a little bit and talk about language for a few minutes, because the words that we use are really important in our shift in the way that we think about people who are living with dementia. So the Eden Alternative philosophy has always taught us about the importance of choosing the words that we use, and that words are very powerful. Denise Hyde's quote here, she's a great Eden mentor. She says, "Words make worlds." And, you know, how we talk about dementia can make a big difference in the life of people living with dementia. The language we use can either make people with dementia and their families feel accepted and equal, or the words we use can add to stigma and discrimination. And so words we choose really impact other people as much as our actions can. So labels are a really dangerous thing for us to use when we are talking about people who are living with dementia, because labels can negatively impact the well-being for people in a very, very great way. Great quote by Lutice here. He says, "Labels cause us to make a mental check mark in an imaginary box, and then we stop thinking." You know, for example, as soon as we label someone based on how they're responding to a situation. So let's say we take a common label when we talk about people living with dementia, the label being attention seeking. As soon as we call someone attention seeking, for example, what happens in our subconscious is that we normalize what's happening because we've given it a name, and then our creativity actually shuts off in our brains. And we then stop looking for the unmet need. What is the reason that they are calling for help or ringing their call light? What is the reason behind it? But as soon as we say that somebody is attention seeking, everything shuts off, and we actually don't help the person or the situation for them. And so labels are really, really dangerous and really fall into the old culture of dementia care, and where people were really treated as non-persons. This is a great little visual about labels. The only thing that needs labels is jars, not people. The only labels that people need are actually their names. But we have to be really careful that we don't label people and add to the stigma of dementia. We have to instead commit to person-first language, where we always put the person first through the way that we speak. The words we use influence how we think, and that will influence how we act and how we treat others. This is Sarah Rowan. She is a very inspiring mentor that we learned a lot from. We learned about Sarah through the Eden Alternative. She became a great advocate of the Eden philosophy and a great advocate for people living with dementia when she was supporting her husband, who lived in long-term care and was living with dementia. And she has a great message about language. She says that we need to ask ourselves, how would I feel if my words were always reflected back at me? Would I feel cherished or tolerated? And she really ties into the human piece of the work that we do, and that we really need to think about the words that we use and how we talk about people, and think about if those were reflected back at us, how we would feel. And so what a great way to sum up Module 2 and our messages on person-directed living, well-being, and of course ensuring that we're choosing person-first language. To wrap up Module 2, if you go back into the e-learning course, there's a video there that we would like you to watch. It's called Creating Home, and it's a video from the Eden Alternative. And then there's also a learning checkpoint quiz that you can complete, and then you will be ready to move on to Module 3. Thank you.